All right, guys, I want to welcome you to session 5. We're going to be talking today all about word choices when it comes to igniting urgency and accountability. Last week, just as a quick review, we really learned the elements of an effective coaching call and how to save yourself time by being, on point during each objective of the call. And again, guys, I do know this as you practice that skill when you're working with your team, you will find your own rhythm, as you begin doing those coaching calls. And I will tell you that because I developed a large team in my first business rather quickly, this skill set of coaching saved me so much time, and it also saved me a lot of pain. And what I mean pain is, just like we talked about at the beginning with working with the wrong people, expecting a different result. So, Gina, I know you had some questions about talking to a prospect, and I'd love to go ahead because I think everybody here, I mean, this falls right under, even though it's not ignite urgency at this very second, I do want to talk to you about that. So tell me where you're at and what I can do for you.
So she reached out and she was like, "Oh, I've been seeing your videos and I'm curious to what you're doing." And I just asked her, I was like, "Oh, because it's someone I know. Like we
Yeah,
went to school together
sure.
when I was younger." And I was like, "Oh, it's nice to hear from you, just curious what made you want more information?"
Right.
And she said that she was just sick and tired. She doesn't want to work till she's 7 years old,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Oh, I get it. No, nobody does." Um,
Right.
so I said, if I was to send you, some information, when do you think we could get back together and, discuss? I'll send you a short
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Well, I can do this." So I sent because I wanted to hold her accountable
Yeah.
for, getting back to
Right. So
talk to her.
you sent her the video and then did you
I
set
did.
up? Okay, so now are you talking about now you're at the stage of you're going to meet and talk to her?
Yes, at 4 o'clock.
Okay. So first things first, and guys, whether you're sharing a video, whether you're sharing some information about your products or business, this would be true for anybody. So, first off, Gina, what you did really well was you you said, here's what I'm going to do, and then what's a good time to chat. This is so important to the process of keeping the momentum moving forward when you're partnering and working with prospects. The worst thing someone could do is say, okay, I sent you the video. Let me know after you've watched it, or something like that. We don't want to give away our power. So now you've got this opportunity to have a conversation with her at 4. So once I get on the call with her and I give her a 10-minute reminder, okay, because remember, people are busy, it's easy to forget. So I give her a 10-minute reminder, we get on the call, and now are you doing a Zoom or a phone call?
Zoom.
Okay. So have you, and you know her kind of, right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
would just be like, God, it's good to see you. And so first, before we get into this, did you have a chance to watch the video? Right? And she's probably going to go, yeah, I watched it. And the reason why she will have watched it, just so everybody here knows this, is because Gina set up a time to talk about it after. It's a light commitment on the prospect's part, but Gina did the moving it forward. So that's why she will have watched it. So you'll say, um, tell me what spoke to you the most, or what did you love about the video? I just say it real quick, right? What'd you love about the video? What spoke to you most? Okay, because guys, we want to bring them into what? The higher vibrational energy. We want to start the call in a good note of her thinking about possibilities, not the latter, which is why it might not work. And oftentimes, the prospects have gone through some emotions even right before we ever get on a call, which is why I like to get on a call very urgently after they watch the video. Okay. So now you're just going to discuss what spoke to you about the video. Now, you can also use that recruiting foursquare and say, hey, I'm just going to run through a few questions. I want to make sure, kind of where your head's at and what your thoughts are. But write this down, Gina. This will be helpful. So once you know what spoke to her about the video, I always take notes. So
This is
let
what we're talking about, the four
Sure,
square.
sure.
Okay.
Yep. So in that upper left corner, now remember, you're kind of like interviewing her, right? So in that upper
Hmm.
left corner, I might say something like, okay, you know, I know you've got some questions, but before we do that, let's just kind of, do a what if? So if you were to say yes to this, Susie Q, what would you want your business to look like? What would you want this to do for you and your family? Do you see? So think about it. Now she's picturing herself doing the business alongside you, right? You see where I'm going with that?
Hmm.
Okay. And so she's probably going to say, whatever that might look like. And then I would say, so if you were to say yes to this, how much money would you want to make a month? What would you need it to look like?
Okay.
What would be the next thing I would say would be, let's talk about your availability. So you're basically just putting her in the picture of actually doing it, right? She's already watched the video, so you don't go from there to presentation, but you could just say when you move to that next quadrant, you know what, Susie Q, now that I kind of know a little bit about you, I'm going to share with you what made me say yes. Okay. So then that you can kind of talk about the benefits, right? I said yes
Mhm.
because of this, this, and this. And it's been a really cool journey. So now I'm going to move off of that to what questions do you have? And she's probably going to ask, how much does it cost to get started? Or tell me about the memberships or something, right? Okay. And if there's ever something that you don't feel comfortable to answer, you just say to her, you know what? I am a little new at this too. I'm going to write it down and I will get back to you on that. But for the most part, you should probably be able to answer what she's going to ask as far as questions, right?
Hmm.
I know you're nervous, but
Me?
yeah, yeah, you're like
No,
a
I'm
little
not
bit.
really nervous.
Okay.
I mean, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not going to be diarrhea of the mouth.
Okay. Well,
That's,
is that helpful when how I'm having
yeah,
you follow this? Okay.
yeah.
And then after you've answered her questions, then you just say, well, gosh, you tell me, Susie Q, where do you want to go from here?
Hmm.
So, I mean,
Okay.
I think you've done so many things right. You're just going to be able to ask her some questions. Let's talk possibilities, right? So first,
Yeah.
we're going to find out what really spoke to her, what she loved about the video. You're going to talk possibilities. If she was to do a business like this, how much money would you want to make? What would you want it to look like? I'll tell you what made me say yes, and then right into what questions do you have? Don't ask what questions do you have at the beginning, though. That's where people
Okay.
get lost. They get like, I don't know what to say then. They don't even know why the person would want to do this. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, and I just keep that Foursquare. Like, I mean, I know all that stuff myself by now, but I do like to have it out because it can prompt you and
Okay.
allow the person to see you taking notes. And don't be afraid one bit if you don't know the answer. That's actually good because it makes them not feel like they have to know every single thing. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Are they still doing the fast start with this promo going on?
Yes.
So if, say she signs up today and she signed up her sister tomorrow, is she getting the double 160?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I
Yep.
wanted to know.
Everyone.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You got it. Okay, guys, we are going to get right to business here. Anybody else want to share a win before we get underway? I know you guys, some of you are in a little bit of a weird area, but anybody want to share a win or anything?
I put up my fairy lights I've had for a year.
Yeah, those are pretty. I like it. It was it's a nice little
I've had
background
them
there.
for like a year too. Why does you see my Zoom? It keeps like focusing in and out.
Yeah, it's what happens is there's something on your Zoom. You can go into settings. It's doing it like it's in your settings. So go into
Okay.
like Zoom settings under like camera and it'll because Megan had that too. She's like, "Oh my God, what's
I
going
know.
on?"
I've noticed it did it a
Yeah,
few times so far. I'm like, what the
it's
heck?
under your cameras. Be all right. Okay, you guys, we are going to get started. Like I said, this has to be one of my favorite um, parts of the course. So let's get her rolling here. All right. So, guys, just a quick review. We know in part one, we really focused on building relationships and, developing people. So, we've already covered making coaching a priority, partnering with the right people, the art of asking questions. Last week was elements of an effective coaching call, and this week is really how to ignite urgency and accountability with your team members. One of the most valuable things I've ever learned and trained. And this week, or I'm sorry, next week, we're going to talk about building leaders and how I can help you with what I call kind of they're called lineage type calls in order to help people move up the ranks. So I think you'll really appreciate that as well. All right, so let's dig in a little bit. We're going to be really focused on 5 strategies to ignite urgency and a lot of I got to move my computer over. A lot of igniting urgency also has to do with the words you use. And if you'll notice, what Gina learned in working with me on another training was how to get someone to either watch a video or she used a tool to keep the momentum moving forward with a prospect. And um, urgency is so key to this because the truth is your prospects, guys, I just say this all the time. They're busy and they're not fully bought in yet. And so just think of it as they're just making an apple pie. They're not ghosting you. They've got other things going on, 100 things, and they're not fully invested. So when somebody doesn't get right back to you, um, that is the least thing you want to do is take it personal because just people are busy. And I want you to think for a minute. If you're not fully invested in something, has there ever been a time where you didn't get back to someone or where you intended to, but something more priority came up? Do you get where I'm going with that? It's really important that we understand that. Okay. So let's move on here and let's look at strategy number one. So we want to talk about the importance of urgency. And I want to just kind of give you guys some of what I think is so important around that. So getting into action of any kind gets someone out of fear. All right. And this is good to know for all of us. Like this morning, I had a few things come up and I kind of like took my breath away for a minute. And I felt a little fear come over me. And what do you think I did? I went out for a quick walk. Like action of any kind gets people out of fear, also clears their head. Okay. So oftentimes, what I will do is I will ask them to list the benefits of completing this. So let's talk about somebody that, right now, let's say that they have something that they're procrastinating. This could be a team member, right? And maybe they're just um really afraid to recruit, or they've got a reach out list but they haven't done anything. So what is something you can do to get them in action? Well, one of the things I'll do is say, you know what, let's create a list of benefits to your business. Who knows what, when we ask them to create a list, what are we doing? Anybody know? What are we doing for them? Think about that for a minute.
You're making them look at the positive aspects opposed to the fear side of it.
There we go. We're what we're doing is we're helping them shift their energy to why people are saying yes to recruiting. We're also getting them into action, and we're supporting them to focus, like Gina said, on the positive energy versus the fear energy. Okay. So by asking people to create a list, you're basically forcing them, if you will, right, to to recall in their mind the importance or the benefits of your business and all those benefits. And what happens is you're helping them get unstuck and creating momentum within the team as well. Okay. Because if one person does this with another, it'll happen with another person. And keep in mind, when I'm focused on the benefits, it's contagious. One person in your team can ignite energy in everybody within the team. Plus, it's also fun. Okay. So, this is a really, really good thing. Okay. So when I've got someone who's in huge amount of fear and it's hard for them to move, and we've talked about the benefits and, they're still kind of like hemming and hawing, I simply will ask them, you know, what will it cost you if you don't do this? What is it costing you? Right. And then they start to realize, you know what? I'm not going to get to my end goal. If their end goal is a financial number, if their end goal is, building a team and moving up the ranks, if their end goal is helping people, right? It may be costing them all of those things by not taking action. Okay. Whoops. So does everybody really understand the importance of urgency, right? Urgency is, in my opinion, it is the biggest igniter of action. All right. So let's look at strategy two. We always want to bring them back to what's most important. And we kind of just talked about that a little bit. Um, Wait a minute. Did we do this? No, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, you guys. My page got, okay. All right, so we want to bring them back what's most important to them. So your goal is to move their emotional state from fear to excitement. All right. Now, I want to just remind you guys, many of you have recalled that, when we talk about onboarding somebody, there's three keys, and I'm just going to share these briefly with you, but there's three keys to onboarding someone successfully. One of the first keys is you have to know what they want. So, like for example, Lori and Ashley, they could come on board their new this is all facetious, but let's say they came on board their new company and Gina was their upline. They came on the same day. And yet, Lori and Ashley might have a completely different reason for joining the company. But if Ashley doesn't know what that is, Ashley will feel disconnected from them. She will feel like she's asking them to do things that she's not sure they want to do. She'll feel like she's being pushy or pushing her agenda on them, all because she's just uncertain of what they want. Are you guys following me? Did I say Ashley? I might have said the wrong name. I think I was supposed to say Gina, but do you get what I mean? So it's so important that you know what makes your team member excited, and they can be short-term things that have them joining your business. It can be a long-term vision, but you've got to know what is most important to them and why they're in the business. Okay. So if you're going to move them from an emotional state, um, of fear to excitement, that's one way to do it. Okay. The next thing is we want to unlock motivation by helping them think about that thing. So I will bring people back to that and I will have them talk about it again. Tell me, Ashley, you know, what you and Trent are going to be doing this summer because of your business. I know you told me you wanted to, and whatever, like take the trip. Or I know you told me you wanted to build the new house, whatever it is. And she'd say, "Yeah, you know what? We still want to do that. Tell me a little bit about that. What's that new house going to look like? What are you most excited about? What room do you get to do all on your own? What room is Trent most excited about?" So we go down this kind of question to get them remembering what's most important to them. When we get in fear, you guys, what happens is we forget what's most important. Has anybody ever felt that way? Drop a one in the comments if you've ever felt that way. Like, yeah, I know what I started for, but what's going on now is a little different. Okay, that happens. All right, good deal. Okay, so we want to help people focus on looking ahead and not behind. What does that mean? Well, to me, what that means is we want them to be, I want you to think of yourselves as driving a vehicle. Okay. I'm driving a car. And let's say all of us are headed to San Diego. Okay. Now, let's say that, you know, I had whatever, I'm trying to get there by looking in the rear view mirror, right? I'm looking at what's going on behind me, or I'm looking at the past, or I'm looking at the problem. If I'm focused in the rear view mirror, how far do you think I'm going to get to San Diego versus the person that's looking straight ahead and going 80? It's going to be difficult, isn't it? So I use that example because it's the same thing when we have a challenge, in our business, or we're afraid of something. It's going to happen all the time, especially if we're doing something new. But what that means is I'm not focused in forward motion, and that will create sticky or stuckness. So, again, the forward motion that's going to take your team member, you know, out of fear the most is bringing them back to what's personally most important to them. Okay? All right. What is your why? So, we just talked a little bit about that. I don't like to say why because to me, I think that from the days of old, it's got a little bit more of a negative connotation. People think you need to have this big why that makes you cry, and that is not true. You don't need a big why that makes you cry. You need to have anything that's important to you that evokes um, your excitement. Okay. So when you ask this, what is your why? What you're trying to do is you're trying to get to the heart of what moves someone. and you'll understand more of what drew them to the business. Um, and you'll get them thinking, in my opinion, of really what is most important to them. So I want you to consider, though, using this language. What is it that you want? And to me, that's probably the most important question you'll ask any team member. And usually they'll go to a place of logic. Well, I want a new kitchen. I want a new, uh, what was I looking for? I want a new, or I want to make blank amount of money. I want to go on a trip. I want to pay for my son's extra, soccer activities. I want to have extra money for rodeo. I don't know. But my point is, what a good leader does is ask the question, what do you want? But what a great leader does is when they say, I want more money, I want to take a trip, I want to pay for my son's blah, blah, blah. What they do is they say, where do you want to take the trip to? What are you going to do when you get there? Okay, I want to make $1,000 extra. What are you going to do with that $1,000 extra? Oh, I'm going to pay my bills. Okay, well, when the bills are paid, what are you going to do when it becomes $2,000? You're helping them dream a little bit and feel the emotional state. Okay, you could also say, what is something that you want from your business that you don't think otherwise you could get, you know? Um, so again, you're going to feel this positive excitement and forward momentum because it's about them. All right. When you ask someone for their why, they look at the past. I want you to think about that. So if I say, why are you doing your business? What often they'll say is, well, because I'm behind on my bills, or because we're not able to go on a family vacation. Um, I'm doing this because we claim bankruptcy. I'm doing this because my money in my account's, really low or whatever. That's the past. But when you ask someone what they want, they look to the future. You guys see that? So keep that in mind. Avoid kind of the why and go to the want. What is it you're wanting? And sometimes people don't know what they want. That's pretty common. So I'll say, well, let's talk this way then. What would it mean to you, for the first 30, 60, or 90 days? What do you want? It could be a pedicure and a manicure. It could be a night out with your husband or wife. It could be a weekend away. What are you doing this for? Let's make it short term and then you can go for a longer vision. I look back, I think to myself, I remember when I started my business, I thought, okay, I just want to make 500 extra dollars. I want to put a little bit of money aside to bring my son to Disneyland, and I want to eat Chinese food whenever I want. Like that was just like, I just wanted to not be on a budget for food, for Chinese food. Isn't that funny? But literally, that's what I was focused on. I thought, how great will this feel? And I thought about it a lot. Okay, so here's some additional quality questions. And I like this too, because what specific things do you want from your business in the next 90 days? Okay. What is most important to you right now? What is happening in your life right now that makes this most important? Now, you guys, again, you're just exploring with them and you're helping them arrive at their own ideas. So I don't usually try and say, well, you want a pedicure, don't you? I don't do that. I want people to own their own choices and decisions. People never argue with their own information, right? So if I tell you this is what I want, that's because I gave you the info. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want this? So I'm going to tell you what happened to me after 90 days. I was in the business 90 days, and I remember the person that signed me up. We had a conversation, and she said, all right, you've been in 90 days. You've already gotten those things. You got your Chinese food, I put aside some money to take my son to Disneyland, although we hadn't fully bought the tickets and all that. We were in the planning stage. So she says, well, what else do you want? Right? And I was like, well, I hadn't really thought about it. And then I let the cat out of the bag. I said, what I really want is I'd love to go part-time at my job. And she said, well, write it down. Do you have it written down? No, write it down. What would that look like? And I distinctly remember telling her, well, I'd probably, have more time with my son. What would that look like? Well, maybe I could take him to school some of the days of the week. Maybe we could, spend more quality time and I could go to more of his soccer practices. So I started visualizing what my life would look like if I was going to go part-time at my full-time job. And then I let the cat out of the bag even a little more after it started feeling cozy and fun to talk about it. And I said, really, what I want though is I want to leave my corporate job. Even though I like it, I really would like to work from home. And I'm a single mom and I'd like to be a stay-at-home mom. And she said, well, do you think that you couldn't do that? And I remember saying, well, it doesn't look like it's possible right now, but have you written that down yet? And the answer was no, I hadn't written it down, but I'd thought an awful lot about it. So I just got a pen and paper and wrote it down. Here's what I want you guys to know. Within 6 months, I didn't know how, but I was able to go part-time at my full-time job. At 1 year, I was able to leave my full-time job because I was making more money with my network marketing business. But here's what I want you guys to know. In the in-betweens, where I had to trust, where I had to pay attention really closely to my time and doing the daily necessities and the daily DMOs and all that, there were times where I doubted, is this ever going to happen? There were times where there might have been a setback, and I just kept visualizing what I wanted. But what you can do with your team members is get them to write it down. Your job is to draw it out of them. And you can also do that with those questions. Remember, the questions that you guys have around getting to the heart of their why. Right. Strategy 3, get clear about the specifics. I get ahead of myself when I explain this to you guys. So we want to build a strategy with them. What are the specifics? What is this going to take to do this? Okay. So I want you just to think about this. And what will it take to overcome the challenge? So again, I'm just going to use myself as the example. What I ended up doing was I built a strategy that would empower me to reach a dollar benchmark each week. I'm sorry, each month. And then I reverse engineered it. So I want to teach you guys how to do that real quick. So the first part of the strategy was how much money did I want to make? What did I need to make? And in those days, I think it was like I needed to make my first like big jump was like I wanted to make 3,500. And then I think it went to like 5 grand and beyond. Okay. But my point is, when I first made that 3,500, what were the activities I needed to do to support that? So I broke it down. I needed to bring in this many new people. I needed to develop, 2 leaders to the rank of blank, and that would boost me to the next rank of blank, right? So I'm giving you kind of the how I do a goal or strategy, okay? And then once I see what I need, that becomes in my daily DMO. Are you guys with me on that? Does that make sense? Okay. So let's say that, we're talking about a challenge of like, now I'm working 3 jobs, pretend, or 2 jobs. Okay, that's challenging because I'm having to kind of be on what I call a teeter-totter a little bit, right? One minute I'm feeling really good, I'm up here, and the next minute I'm like, wow, I'm doing a lot more than I normally do. Well, what will it take to overcome the challenge? And for me, again, specific actions. And the specific actions are what it takes to build the business. And typically, it's an amount that you're going to be selling, it's an amount it's a number of people that you're going to bring on, whether you get paid to recruit people or whether that next rank is higher or more money. Okay? That's how we build out the strategy. We also build out the strategy by their level of commitment and availability. Okay? So, in the beginning, it's really important that you know how much money do they want to make and that you can show them how to get that. And then what are the activities? Those are those specific actions that they're going to do. Now, when I'm beginning to work with somebody, strategy number 4 is huge. Put a timeline on every action. Okay. A lot of my coaching clients will tell me, Joan, so and so said they were going to do this, but I haven't seen anything from them, for a while. That's an example. And I would say, tell me when they agreed to take action, or how did you set it up for them that they were going to take action? Tell me, what did you do? Okay? And often they'll forget to maybe do action steps. And more often than that, they'll forget to put a time bound or a timeline on it. So when you know what someone wants and what makes them want it, now we want to help them make it happen. And it's all going to happen by putting a timeline on every action. So here's how we do that. When do you see yourself taking the first step? You know, are they going to be starting it? Like I just worked with somebody this morning who said, I'm willing to do this, this, and this over the next couple weeks before Christmas. And then January, I'm going to be willing to do this, this, and this. All right. So when do you see yourself taking the first step? Okay. What exactly will you accomplish by this date? So for her and I, it was more specific around, let's talk about the action steps you're going to take in the next 2 weeks on a daily basis. And then we'll revisit again at the end of December before you go into January. Here's what I want you guys to know. It is not your responsibility to own their goals or their action. The coach must let go if the person doesn't take action in order to move on. Okay. And we want to empower people, our team members. We don't want to enable them. All right. So putting a timeline on it by asking them, when will you see yourself taking the first step, or when will you accomplish this? When will you have it done? Now, if I have someone, you guys, that is in a big amount of fear, which is probably 50% of the new people that come on, I already know how long the activity will take for them to, let's just say, do 20 reach outs. I already know how long that's going to take. So I might say something like, okay, you've got your 20 reach outs, Gina. Um, do you feel that it would be fair that you could have this done in the next, 24 to 48 hours? So see how I'm giving her a choice, but I'm guiding her into a timeline? How do you feel about doing it in the next couple days? Or how do you feel about having it back to me by Friday, 9 a.m.? And Gina will tell you, you know, oh, I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow night to Hawaii. I'm going to be able to, you know, work on this on the entire plane ride. No problem. I'll actually have it to you tomorrow night. Or, you know what? I've got a Christmas party tonight. I've got Johnny's soccer tomorrow. I'm working all day. Joan, what do you think? Could I have it to you Friday night? Because I am only working a half day on Friday. Sure. But do you see how she had to think about what was going to work for her, and then now we're in a communication around it. But it's not just me saying, okay, Gina, I need you to have that done by tomorrow at 5 p.m. or you're out. Remember, we're not managing people, we're developing them, and they don't work for us. So they have to also like us. And when we start telling people what to do, that doesn't always work. However, I'm going to tell you guys one more thing. I do have a core group of people that I work with pretty regularly, that I'm so used to working with them and they're so used to working with me that I will say something like, all right, when's this going to be done? You tell me, can you get it done by tonight at 5? Yes. Okay, great. Get on it. So your relationship deepens with people as you begin working with them and you become to know what their strengths and opportunity areas are. Not their weakness, that it's not weakness, it's opportunity areas. I'm going to tell you guys one more thing that you can tell your team members. When they're struggling and it's hard and it happens, you remind them that they're practicing. And what the goal is to learn to love the activities that make you money, right? Learn to love the things that make you money. If you wake up every day and go, I hate being on social media, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Well, does it make you money? Probably. Let's just learn to love it. Learn to love it. Like, wow, I'm going to get up, I'm going to make money. Every time I get done with my social media, I'm making money, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. Strategy 5. This is really important. Each person is wired differently. So we want to be sure that we're asking questions to match their style. Questions that work for one may not work for another, which is so important to why you're getting to know them. And all the while, while working with them, you'll see, okay, this person is way more of an A type. They want the bottom line. They're a real go-getter. This person's more methodical. They like to take their time and think through it. They're very detailed. Both personalities are fine. There's no right or wrong. Even if you're one or the other, you tend to think people should be like you. That's what we all do. Not true. We want to match their style as we learn to get to know them. So learn to recognize their personality style. And if you've got somebody that's a bottom liner and you're very methodical and like to talk a lot or something, you got to watch that because they'll tune you right out. Okay. Each person has a tendency to lean toward one of two ways. Okay. Now I'm going to just kind of explain this to you because these are really what I would call, their nature, right? It's their nature. So, have you noticed that some people can't stop thinking about the results? And then there's some people that get caught up in all the details. There's some people that are worried about what other people are going to feel. And then there's other people, all they want to do is just have fun. I don't really care about the results. Yeah, whatever about the details. I really could care less what people think. I just want to have a good time. Okay, so this is something I want you guys to know. To ignite urgency, we got to know their personality styles. So we recognize their personality styles and we adapt to them. So this is a book. I'll show it to you guys here in just a minute, but it's really a good one. So no one personality is better than the other, and that's something really important. You know, I I often when I first started in the business, I thought everybody had to work the way I did. Sun up, sundown. If you're not go hustling your ass off, you're not good at the business. Well, that's just not true. Okay. So remember, less judgment of the person and be curious. Okay. All right. We're going to go right into the person that leans toward results. Okay. So this person is more goal oriented. They're going to be a little bit more A type. They want to get into action. They want to figure it out pretty quickly. They work quickly. They often can work independently really well. They take charge. Okay. Often they're the ones leading the pack. They love a good challenge and they do embrace risk. They're kind of like, I'll try it. Let me do it. And they can juggle many things at once. They also can be seen as stubborn, impatient, and kind of rough around the edges or tough. So, how do we ignite urgency with this kind of person? I get them visualizing. I get them visualizing their results. Okay? Visualize their results. You can also ask them things like, I want to know, how will this impact your life? How will this impact your life? All right. There's also the personality that leans more toward relationships. They're definitely warm, they're reliable, they're supportive, they're often sensitive to others. They love to collaborate, okay? They're loyal. They're very annoyed with pushy behavior. They can be seen sometimes as unassertive. How do we ignite urgency with this person? We often will ask them to think about how others feel. Okay. So if they're relationship oriented, you could say, in what ways will doing this make life better for others? So again, guys, these are just some examples. There's a person that leans toward the process. So these are people that are very system oriented. They like to be efficient. They're very organized. They're the ones who are like, you've got a spell check problem in your boards, you know, where's the paperwork for that? Where's the steps? They often can be seen as perfectionists. So these are the people that want to have it all perfect before they talk to people. And they can be very cautious. They might take a while to make a decision. They can be precise. They're very dependable, typically, and accurate. And they're heavily focused on facts and details. So this is someone that's just very process oriented, but sometimes if you're an A-type personality, you think, man, they are moving slow, but they're just processing things. Okay, so we could ask them to write specific steps of their first step. What step will you take first? And what will that look like? Tell me how you're going to do that. All right, let's look at the fun one. And by the way, you're probably recognizing you might have a little of all of these things, but you'll be heavier in one or two areas. So you have a first and a second. All right, so the fun people like to be social, enthusiastic. They're often fast-paced. They can be big picture thinkers. They could be the idea person. Sometimes they're spontaneous. They can also be intuitive. They kind of feel people and sense people's needs and wants. They also typically love recognition. They like to be center spotlight, center stage. They have little to no interest in details or facts. With this kind of person, you want to help them make it fun. Tell me something fun you will do once you make this happen. Or how can you make that task more fun so that you'll love to do it? I often with people that need the fun, and I'm kind of this way at some level, meaning I just compete with myself. I'll be like, okay, if you do this, this, and this, Joan, you're going to be able to go get a filet tonight. I'm going to probably get the filet anyway, but I make a game with myself because it's fun. Or I set a timer and, I'm like, I'm going to feel so good when this is done. 15 minutes, go. Okay, so the reward often, this can be short-term rewards, is really fun for fun people. All right. So guys, if you want to learn more about the personality styles, this is a really good book, The Platinum Rule by Tony Alessandra. And again, I know there's many different ways to understand people, but relationships, fun, process, and results really is a simple way to do it. And you have a primary and a secondary typically. Okay, so let's just really quick run through these right here. So remember, we went over today the importance of urgency and why that's so key to your process and your flow. Um, we also, I like to use these words. You can write this at the side. I will often tell somebody, here's why this is important to your business, and here's how to do it. So this creates buy-in. Okay. So again, remember we talked about bringing them back to what's most important to them, getting really clear about the specifics, putting a timeline on every action, and then asking questions to match their personality style. All right, guys. So, what steps will you take this week to ignite transformational change? And I like this quote. Always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. Meaning, oh, that's a good picture of me in the sun there, isn't it? No, I just realized that was me. I was like, that's a cool picture. I forgot. Um, Here, let me stop share. So, really, you guys probably see how when somebody tells you they're going to do something as a team member or they've agreed to go do the thing, whatever that thing is, now you've learned that you're going to say to them, okay, that sounds good. Um, I often will ask people, would you like me to hold you accountable to that? So I'll ask a permission, do you want me to hold you accountable? Yes, I do. Great. When will you have that done? Now, here's what a lot of people will ask me, Joan, what if they don't do it? What if they don't do it? So I'm not going to be tracking people down like you missed your deadline. It was 5 o'clock and now it's 5:10 and I'm trying to track them down. But I will go back and I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I might say something like, I know that I'd had down here, and it might be a day later or something, that you were going to give me a jingle at 5 o'clock to kind of talk about the results. You must have gotten busy or something came up, so I'm just checking back in. How we doing? So I always assume the best of my team members. Always assume that they're busy, they got sidetracked or something. But if that happens more than 3 times, then I'm kind of getting the picture that their words aren't matching their actions. Okay. And that's when we'll learn about, really how to let somebody go in the coaching relationship and how to do it with ease and grace. All right, guys, any questions for today? Any questions that you have? Was this helpful? You guys are all on mute. And I know some of you have things going on in the background. So, Anybody got any questions around igniting um, urgency? No? All right. Lorraine, did you have a question?
I was trying to turn the microphone on. It's like
Oh, well, good.
punching it, it wouldn't do. But no, I don't. But you know, sometimes you get more than one lesson here. It's it is quit being such a pacifist and thinking that everybody will, call you back after they look at the video, as you explained earlier. They're not going to. So it's book a meeting from a meeting. We're
Yep.
trying to get resolution here. I mean, shall we follow up again? Do you have enough information? But shit
Yeah.
will get off the pot. Shit will get
Yeah.
off the pot.
Yeah, I like that. Well, going back to what you said, you know, what people don't realize is we want to stay in our power. We're the one guiding the process with our team members. And also, well, I'm gonna mute you. There's just a little bit of background noise, but we're the ones guiding the process with our team members, with our prospects, okay? And we want to keep in mind that if we drop the ball, it's just I practiced. And often I want to give you guys one more thing that I do a lot. Let's say that I get off the phone with Lorraine, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to ask her for action steps, or I forgot to get a deadline or a timeline." Okay? I will message her back and say, "Hey, Lorraine, it's Joan. Oh my gosh, I got to thinking," write that down. I got to thinking I didn't get um I didn't get a deadline, or we didn't set up a time to chat again. Okay? So remember that if you ever forget something with a prospect, a team member, a customer, you don't need to go like, "I forgot, I'll do better next time." No, do better right now and just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey Gina, it's Joan. Oh my gosh, I got to thinking I didn't blah blah blah," and then I can ask the question, right? And I do that a lot. I even do it with my own kids. I just literally hung up with my son this morning about something, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, Miles. Hey, I got to thinking I didn't ask you what you wanted in the drawing for Christmas. Do you have any ideas for me? Can you give me 5 things?" That kind of thing. So you can use it all over the place. But it is your I got to thinking is the truth. You start thinking about it and you're like, "Wait a minute," right? And so that way you don't have to think I'm going to learn the lesson. You can actually take an action that will help you continue to move that forward. But anytime that you talk to somebody that is uncertain or that you're working with, you always want to have the next time that you're talking to them. Don't give the power away and put it back on them. Okay. All right, you guys. Have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday. And I was trying to think, are we meeting? I think we are meeting this Friday, aren't we? Yeah, yes, I think so. Yep. Yes, we are. 12 this Friday. So, anything you guys need, please reach out. We love you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, the rest of your Wednesday. Bye, guys.